All right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit more about the minimum wage. This is something that's brought up a lot, again, mainly more by the socialist types, but it's something that a lot of people just don't understand. Uh, there's a lot of very important aspects to it that people really don't bring up, and it really bothers me because the problem could be fixed a lot easier, but there's obvious reasons for that that I'll get into. So, Costco is increasing its minimum wage to $16 an hour. Um, I don't know if this is across the world or not. I know they're doing it in the States. I don't know what they're doing in Canada and the rest of the places, but and again, $16 US is like 20, 21 Canadian. So that's a pretty good pay right there for working retail, right? So um, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to pull that off, but clearly they have a plan, right? I mean, they are a very massive corporation, so I'm guessing they probably could find a way if they really wanted to. And I'm guessing they'll start to double down a little bit more on like self-checkout and stuff like that. Um, but when it comes to the minimum wage, right? This is the thing that the leftists, the socialist types constantly bring up. And what is their reasoning for it? Well, their reasoning for it is people are living in poverty, or maybe they're not dirt poor, but they're still, they're barely getting by, right? So what we got to do is we got to raise the minimum wage. Now, their thinking makes sense somewhat, but when you actually have an understanding of economics and of just reality in general, it makes no sense at all for several reasons. Number one, what if you're not worth 15 or 16 or whatever dollar amount an hour? Well, you're not going to have a job. You're going to lose your job. So this is the thing that's universally accepted um, by all economists, at least all respectable economists, that if you raise the minimum wage, especially a significant amount, you will increase unemployment. Like I say, no respectable economist would disagree with that. So this is the problem that these people don't understand is that let's say you raise the minimum wage to 15. I mean, I think the US example that they raise the minimum wage to 15 bucks an hour, that's gonna lift like a million people out of poverty, but it's also going to put a million people out of work. So this is the problem with the whole raising of the minimum wage thing is that you really, at the end of the day, you really don't get further ahead. Yeah, you may raise the wages for some people and it may make them better off, but you're also going to put other people out of work. And that brings me to the other big problem when it comes to the minimum wage too, is that minimum wage jobs aren't supposed to be jobs for older adults, people who have kids, right? Or maybe you don't have kids, but you're older, you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. They're meant for people in their teens and 20s to kind of get started, maybe to, earn some money on the side, right? That's what they're meant for. If you still have a minimum wage job in your 30s, 40s, 50s, something went seriously wrong. Or maybe you like the job and you don't really care. Maybe, I don't know. But chances are something went seriously wrong. So this is the big problem with the minimum wage is that the reason why these people want to cover up the minimum wage, a very important thing is people aren't earning enough money because they don't have the skills to earn enough money. And the one thing that they always bring up too is, oh, that's why we need free college, right? Free college. But that's not going to fix the problem. Like in the States, I heard a number the other day. There's like 150,000 janitors that have at least a degree, some of them even more. The problem is not lack of education. The problem is lack of quality education. So another big thing when it comes to the raising the minimum wage thing is that it's just an excuse to cover up just how terrible of a job public schools do and universities do. It's not that not enough people have degrees, right? Like life was far more affordable a generation or two ago, and far less people had degrees, right? So if anything, there's an opposite correlation. Now again, people who have degrees do earn more on average, But that's largely because the workforce is so oversaturated these days that employers need some way of weeding people out. Because again, most jobs to where you're required to need a degree, you're not actually required to need a degree. Why do you need a college degree to be an accountant? Why do you need a college degree to be a manager in a business? Why do you need a college degree to program computers? Right? Why do you need a degree for those things? There's no need for it. Again, I mean, you look at a lot of these top coders and stuff, they don't have a degree. I hear about people all the time that have these um, tech startups and stuff like that, that they're high school, college dropouts. Like, why do you need a degree? Now, again, the reason why you quote unquote need a degree is because the workforce is so oversaturated because of mass immigration, largely, right? And because the government does such a terrible job, handling the economy, right? Like, if the government actually did a decent job handling the economy and didn't overregulate everything to the point to where jobs are lost, raising the minimum wage to artificially high levels, do a terrible job educating kids. Again, I could go on and on. So at the end of the day, the reason why the minimum wage needs to be raised, at least in reality, it doesn't actually need to be, but the reason why they want it to be raised is because, again, public schools do a terrible job, colleges do a terrible job. I think the other big thing too is that a lot of people go and get a pointless degree and they come out of school with debt, and they can't afford to take a $10 an hour job or a $15 an hour job. They need more. So the problems are very clear. The actual problems. It's not that the minimum wage isn't high enough. It's that number one, the workforce is too oversaturated, and number two, um, we have a lack of quality education, not a lack of education. Right? Like, there is no reason why an able-bodied person with a high school degree shouldn't be, most of the time, shouldn't be able to get a job out of high school making $20 an hour and within 5 to 10 years be making 50, 60 grand, no problem. Like, there's no reason that shouldn't exist. The reason why that doesn't exist is because, again, the government has done a horrible job managing everything. Horrible job. So again, the solutions are very clear. Number one, stop telling kids to go to college so much. Like, literally, like half the kid, even probably even less, maybe like a quarter. Like, aside from the things to where you absolutely need higher education, like doctor, lawyer, engineer, aside from stuff like that, there's no like business, like pretty much anything in business, you shouldn't need a degree. In tech, in IT, there's no reason you should need a degree. You can learn all that stuff on the job, no problem. Right? So the vast majority of people should not be going to college. That's the first thing. Now, again, that's never going to go through because the colleges want to keep the professors want to make their bloated salaries, the administrators want to make their bloated salaries, and there's no way that, again, if a right wing government ever proposes cutting those salaries, it'll be they hate the poor and they want people to stay poor, right? And if a left, there's no way a left wing government would go for it either, because cutting spending when you're a left wing government is like, what, like, they would say, well, what does that even mean, cutting spending? Like, we don't do that. Um, so again, the big problem at the end of the day is that it's never going to happen, right? The things that are actually going to fix these problems, it's not going to happen, because if someone proposed it, they would be raked over the coals. Even though it's a very simple fix, at least going in the right direction, it's a very simple fix. Cutting immigration would be one of the biggest. That would help the economy more than pretty much anything. Um, Stop forcing, basically forcing so many kids to go to college. That would do a world of help. Stuff like that, cutting regulation, stuff like that would do so much help. But again, we have a government that's run by crazy left wingers, right? Both in Canada and the U.S. right now. And at a state and provincial level, we had the amount of actual conservative libertarian types are few and far between. I mean, Canada, we have none of them. right? Our last hope was like Jason Kenney, Scott Moe, Doug Ford. They all sold out. Not that it really surprises me, but they all sold out. States, maybe you could argue there's some decent people, but most of them are still sellouts as well. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you could do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But like I said, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.